Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Adobe Fonts Show, episode 48. Glad to have you all. As you may have noticed, we have a special guest host today on the stream. So, yes, Ari is on vacation, and Jake is here to fill her shoes.
I
Yeah,
wish I was also in Greece right now, but
we all do.
unfortunately, we can't all be climbing a mountain of feta cheese and swimming in the wonderful lakes of Greek yogurt. But instead, we're here talking about fonts.
Yes, which is also fun. Not quite the same, but also fun. Also, if anyone in the chat with us today is from Greece, then let us know because that is where Ari is right now. It'd be kind of fun. I see we already have some people joining us. Annika, Cody, thank you for moderating. Oliver, Umacorn, Alex, thanks for joining. Let us know where you're from and all that good stuff. Yeah. Jake, is this the first time you've come on the show?
It is. I'm very excited. I'm kind of glad that Ari's away, stepping out of the limelight for a second with a well-deserved vacation, so I could
Yes.
join you. I've
Yeah.
been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm excited that part of most of our job day by day is thinking about and talking about fonts. So it's just fun to be doing
It's
this
just kind of par for the
on
course here.
camera.
Yeah, we just do it with everybody else.
I know.
For those of you who are new, I'm Ben. I'm a content producer for Adobe Fonts. I do things like this stream and making other videos and tutorials and things. And my job is basically to help you get the most out of type when you're using Creative Cloud. So that's me. Jake, why don't you tell us what you do for the team?
Yes, so I'm Jake Giltsoff. I am an experienced designer on the
Mm-hmm.
fonts team, which is a very, very fancy way of saying that I help people find and use fonts. So it's kind of all things text at Adobe. I get to design the experiences of how you interact with them.
Yes, it's a very important job. Um,
It's very important. I mean, I don't like to brag, but I feel like it's one of the most amazing jobs in the design world, right? I get to just think about fonts all day, every day, talk about them, go into all of these crazy minute details around interactions with how you find them and use them and really think about, how we can make Adobe the best place to use type.
yeah, I think, I mean, not to brag, but I think we might already be there, but there's always a room for improvement.
Oh
Um,
yes.
and for those of you new to Adobe Fonts, Adobe Fonts is a library of 25,000 fonts that you can use with your Creative Cloud subscription for both personal and commercial use. So that's a lot of fonts. If you're not sure exactly where to start, you can definitely check our recommendations page on fonts.adobe.com and just start activating fonts to use them as you please. Um, and if you're new to the Adobe Fonts show, this is where we talk about all things related to fonts. We have workshops with professionals in the type world. And you should definitely subscribe to Adobe Live on YouTube and then follow Adobe Fonts on Behance, where we announce all future shows. And we also have all the past shows there as well. So if you want to look at our back catalog of episodes, you can check that out.
And while we talk about YouTube, quick note: if you're watching on YouTube, you can join us on Behance as well, and you can
Yes.
interact with the chat.
If you want to join the chat, definitely come join us on Behance. Thank you, Jake, for mentioning that. I had a.
My favorite. I've been a long time lurker of the chat. Every time I'm free from meetings when Ben and Ari are on, I'm like dropping in and quickly joining in the chat. So exciting to be on the other side of it.
Yes. Okay. Before we dive into today's topic, we have a very quick poll for everyone, and you can just answer in any way your heart desires. But what is your favorite Wes Anderson film? This is related to today's topic. So, Jake, I don't know if you have a favorite or not. We were talking about this before the stream. You haven't seen all of them, but
No, I haven't seen every single one. Um, Although this weekend I did have the chance to go to the theater and watch the latest Asteroid City. I don't know which my favorite is though. I mean I think probably the Grand Budapest Hotel.
mm,
is my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. But you haven't seen the Royal Tenenbaums.
I haven't. I haven't seen the earlier movies because I was a mere child at the time, and I've not made the effort to go back and watch them. But
I think
that's
that
definitely going to be something I do after this.
I think that's my favorite, and I've been to the house that it was filmed in Harlem.
Oh wow!
So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
which I
cool.
would like to do that again soon. That would be very
Oh,
fun. Liz said Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is an excellent film. We have, I don't think we have anyone from Greece, but we have someone from Toronto, UK, Netherlands, Queens. Excellent. And Annika got one of the fonts, Futura. Yes, that is definitely a font from a Wes Anderson film.
we will be mentioning Futura, I think at least 1,000 times over
Yes,
this hour.
it
So
it makes more than cameos in many films. So, well, speaking of which, you can keep telling us your favorite Wes Anderson movies and talk about Wes Anderson films in the chat because that's the topic of today's stream. So we can just get to talk about Wes Anderson inspired stuff all for the next hour. I was going to say all day long, but basically for the next hour. Jake, you ready to go? Should we dive in?
yeah, let's do it.
All
Let's
right.
do it. So Wes Anderson, of course, is kind of this prolific director and writer, and his style is just so unique. I think you would say, right? It's quirky, it's whimsical, it's nostalgic, it's maybe a little bit divisive in some ways. I think either you like absolutely love Wes Anderson, or maybe you're a bit like, this is too arty and too you
Pretentious,
know
maybe, or you could have that
yeah,
reaction. Yeah.
right. I think over the time as well, and we'll dig into this a bit more, focusing obviously on the type, but his style has evolved over the last almost 30 years now. He's been making these amazing movies, and I think it's there's so many traits and and things that he uses again and again. I think people have,
Mm,
when you love it, like it's this beautiful other world of
mm,
it's I think it's kind of alternate reality of a visual feast for the eyes.
indeed.
But it's you know maybe it's not your thing, and that's fine. But I think one thing that isn't divisive is the TikTok trend that has been going around the last, I guess, several months at this point. I think it's kind of resurfaced again with the release of the latest movie. And whether you again maybe love or hate TikTok, I think this one is my TikTok feed is entirely just every other clip is Wes Anderson trend. It's this I think it's like the theme is basically like you take an everyday scenario and you imagine that you're seeing it through the eyes of Wes Anderson, and you're doing all of these things that he does so often. So you're doing these symmetrical shots is
Hmm.
really his main um, kind of
The
tell.
one thing I couldn't do while following this trend is the tracking shot. So that's when
Yeah,
someone's walking
right,
sideways to the camera, but the camera's moving with them in perfect sync.
right.
That's one of my favorite things that he does.
Yeah, and then there's I think it's called a whip pan as well, where you're like
Yep.
you're in. It's still both. It's all in the same scene, but like you're focused on one character, one set of characters, and it pans you around, and then even sometimes it kind of does this funny thing where the first character will then just walk around to where the camera is moved to, and all of these things kind of very cinematic um trends, I guess. But there's also things like it's got the color grading on the movies is always very kind of, I don't know, whimsical and
Saturated and
otherworldly.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Also, Cody posted the TikTok trend link and the New York Times article about the trend in the
Yeah,
chat if you're interested. So those are what kind of inspired this stream because Jake, you had seen this trend going around, and then we were going to do the show, and then also we knew the movie was coming out, so it was like, okay, and obviously the type is one of the most iconic parts of Wes Anderson movies. So
yeah. So let's jump to the type, because yeah, obviously like cinema aside, all of that is incredible and really, a big part of what he does. But I think the other thing is really this kind of vintagey, nostalgic feel of type as well. And it's so like, and over time as well, it's just become such a big part of the work that he does. And I think it's, I can share some examples here. I wanted to also call out, I think this is the first time on the live stream that we're showing the new Adobe Express beta.
Mm.
So we're we're celebrating this a lot on the team internally. This is something that I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks we've released this beta, so everyone can try it out now. It's something that we've been putting in a ton of work the last few years of work by so many people across the company. And on a type team, this is something that we've been collaborating with the people who work on Express and helping out with how type works in Express. So I'm excited to give you a little tour around the new Express as well and show off some of the features along the way. But let's start off with this overview of some of the Wes Anderson movies. So I've made this little timeline, and this is, I guess, this is like newest to oldest. Um, and I think what's most fascinating about this stylistically is how it evolves over time and how it, you can really see Anderson's kind of unique style being built over time, and then almost becoming a caricature of itself. Like it's so everything is so Wes Anderson that by the more recent films, it's just hitting on all of those notes again. Um, so I think we've already had Futura mentioned in the chat, and I don't know if you can see my T-shirt in the little corner is I'm wearing my Futura T-shirt because, of course, if you're thinking about Wes Anderson, Futura is probably the number one font that you're going to come across. This was designed in 1927, for those who are interested, by Paul Renner, who was a German type designer. It's featured in the very first movie. So you see here Bottle Rocket, the type this was in, I think the opening credits. This was set out in, I think it's Futura bold, all caps, kind of a little bit spaced out so it fits in nicely. And this was the early days. So this is back in 1996. I think this is the first like kind of full feature that Anderson made. And you can see, over time, this is like he really leans more into this. So to start with, he hits on some of the trends that he comes to that we know and love him for, right? There's obviously Futura, which I mentioned. There's this handwritten type, handwriting, and calligraphy that becomes another kind of key thing that we see. But one of the more strange things with this early piece is, the promotional material. So here we see the poster for the movie.
That
This
looks
is, a bit less
it
Wesy,
looks
right?
bonkers. I mean, it looks so out of place compared to every other poster after this.
Yeah, if
The
I hadn't
cover.
said 1996, I think we could probably all guess the year or the decade that this was made. Right, this is peak 90s. This
The
kind of
like torn
bonkers
photo
type,
edges,
and
the type,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Hyper
and then
saturated. Like it looks like a band album cover, it looks like a
it
90s
really
band
does,
album
doesn't it?
cover. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, is this Owen Wilson like lead singer? I don't know. Then up next was Rushmore. I think again you can see some of the traits that really start coming out. So again, we have Futura here, which is like really featured in the type that's added on top of um, uh, the movie, right? So there's a few different ways that type are used in all of the movies, right? So first of all, there's kind of there's promotional materials. There's the opening credits and the titles. There's type that that's in the movie, right? For example, the graphic design that's gone into it. So so you can see here in this book, we have the typesetting that's been done on this. And even in these early movies, this was highly curated, right? Like you can see that time and effort has gone into all of these decisions. Calligraphy again here is is another trend that we keep seeing again and again. But
Mm.
again, with this early movie, we still don't quite have that signature style across everything, right? We have this, almost, I don't know, Russian propaganda type movie poster here. And I actually do not know what font was used for this. I tried to find something similar, and the best I could find from Adobe Fonts is Acumen Extra Condensed, and obviously it's got this crazy skew going on, and a lot of, like, I don't know, strange stuff happening. But this really isn't. When we think of Wes Anderson, I wouldn't say this is really canonical. However, when we get into
Yep.
early 2000s, this is when we really hit peak Futura. Now I think there's something. I haven't actually seen this movie. I've been doing a lot of research about it though, and I think this is um, my favorite in terms of use of type, because it's basically all Futura. Like everything, the amount of attention to detail that's gone into this is it's amazing. Like every single piece of signage, like even this bus in the background has like Futura, like a oblique italic version of Futura going on in the background. Just every single thing, like the poster, like this, even the small text down here. Okay, I guess this is kind of like a typewritery sort of font going on, but you know, so much Futura. It's really where I think this is the sort of time that he really hit the, like, I'm going all in on this style. And then from there, I think he starts to build it out a bit more and have a bit more kind of fun with it. So yeah, these are the early three, and I think when we start to move forward a bit, Futura is still really, really the focus, but we start to have a bit of fun with it, right? So here you can see an example with next up. I think Ben, you said that you particularly enjoyed this one.
I do. I
Um,
love this film. Yeah, it's very good.
so it's still all Futura, or mostly all Futura.
This is the
Um,
first time that Wes Anderson did stop motion. Was for the scene at the
yeah.
end of this in the submarine, and they built a full scale model of half of the Belafonte, split down the
Hmm.
middle, so that he could film everybody's room and pan around it. So it's a full scale model of the boat cut in half,
Right.
so that you can pan from
Yeah.
everyone's room and go see what everyone's up to. Just things like that. Very very fun details.
Yeah, and the stop motion becomes more and more of a thing, and
Yep.
obviously some of the movies that are entirely stop motion. And I love obviously the cool, like, Belafonte, like it's font, very nice. We like those little details.
And
But yeah, you can see here that this is like an outlined version, or I guess you could even say an inline version of Futura, which we don't actually have anything exactly the same as this. I guess you could set text in Futura and then set an outline. Um, but there is plenty of other outline fonts, or inline fonts available from Adobe Fonts. So one way that
and
you can
the one you used
access
there
some of
was
these,
kind of geometric as well. It's not exactly the same as Future, obviously, but it's very geometric.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, of course. So yeah, when we think about Futura, it's very modernist. It's a geometric sans serif, right? So when we look at the letter forms, they're pretty much either circular or triangular or square. And this style, Futura was one of the original, um, the OG fonts that kind of proliferated this style. And over time, you can see just like a ton of fonts that have taken this as inspiration and then made it their own in some other way. So many of the popular fonts even today have the same characteristics of Futura. Um, and
And
you're right, like this one here is very similar.
if you want to check out any of the fonts that or any of the styles that Jake is highlighting, Cody is posting links to the fonts in Adobe Fonts that are either Futura or things like Futura or the closest matches that we have in our library to mess around and get similar,
Mhm.
start from a similar place if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, that's a great call. So there's a couple of ways that we can find fonts like this, right? So because yeah, this stream is obviously about Wes Anderson, but it's more that we want to take this as a starting point and think, hey, like he's made this such incredible style that he's so well known for, and how can we use that as inspiration for our designs, and how, find what we like about it, and maybe make it our own, right? So it's not necessarily about, hey, I have to use Futura for everything. And when we think about this TikTok trend, it's not that to be on trend you have to exactly use the same fonts, but it's more, if I want to emulate that or take inspiration from it, how can I use that as a starting point and then
Yeah.
make it my own? So we can either do that directly in Express. So one way that you can do that, and actually how I quickly found this one is within like the font menu drop down here, we have all 25,000 fonts from Adobe Fonts. So if you come down to the bottom here and you click on more fonts, we'll actually take you into this kind of way of quickly browsing through those by different styles. So, we've talked about geometric. So one way we can do it actually is to, jump straight to geometric, right? These are going to be fonts that are similar to Futura. They're not all going to be sans serif. Some of them I think we have here like a slab serif. Some of them, this one here looks a bit more, almost art deco, art nouveau-y
Mm.
with those very low middle bars. But this is a way that hey, I want to take Futura as my starting point, but I want to find something a bit different, right? I want to make this my own. And you'll notice that okay, some of them end up looking pretty similar, right? Here we have Europa, but like you can see, but this is where you want to if you want to make it your own, you can be like, hey, I actually, one thing I don't particularly like about Futura personally is, the ends of these C's, it's so kind of geometric, right? But it's this cut off. Whereas here in Europa, we get that a little bit more,
Mm.
I don't know, it goes a little bit further around, right? Like, obviously these details are minute, but overall it's going to add up to a bit of a different vibe. Now, if we want to also look for some similar to these titling, the inline fonts, we also have an inline grouping here. So if I was to look at this, again, I can scroll down here. I think this was actually, yes, the one that I had found, which was, kind of similar. It's kind of emulating that same vibe. There's a bit of a different hue going on and a few different quirks, but, it's giving that same feel. And, I would safely say that this feels Wes Anderson-y. Now, the second way that you can do this as well, we have, say you're not directly in the application, maybe you just want to quickly look around. Another way that you can do it is on obviously the font's website. So if you jump on over
Yeah.
to,
Those same tags and the same groupings are available on the site.
yeah, totally right. So we have, all of these different tags are available here. You can narrow it down with, further classifications, and maybe you only want it to be a bold version or a low contrast version, right? You can get way more into the details here, and you've got a bit more space. So if you wanted to find something, spend a bit more time and really dig into things, that's another way you can do it. One other fun thing that we can dive a bit more into, I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit again because Darjeeling Limited, again, it's using Futura. It's taking a stylistic version of it as well. I guess I will call out, this one's kind of nice quickly, is, we have this, and sorry, this is kind of a low resolution screenshot we got going, but it's, there's this kind of styling that's applied on it. It's
Kind of
not
harsh
inline, but
shading on it
it's,
almost. Yeah.
yeah, it's even carried through to this like Arabic type that's used as well. Like it's I don't know, it's a nice treatment. So I wanted to call out, we actually have and now I don't even know how you pronounce this. I think it's either Asia or Acier because I think it's designed for a French designer. So, but this one, it kind of has some of that built into it and directly into the font. So, if you didn't want to have to apply all that styling, you can get a very similar vibe directly in this font, which I love. This one's so fun. Let's jump back. Again, fantastic fonts. I'm not even going to bother. Futura, like we're all the way, we're how many 6 films in, and we're super, super into Futura. Then something, strange happens. I don't know what happened exactly, but we were like, hey, we are done with Futura for now. We want to expand out into script fonts.
We want something totally unlike Futura.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this was some reaction to, like being so Wes Anderson that he wanted to expand his repertoire. But this one, I mean, this is beautiful. So this font that was used here was a custom design font by a friend of our team, actually, Jessica Hish. She has I think she's spoken at a few of our team events and everything before. She's a friend of many of us. So this is called Tilda, which isn't available through Adobe Fonts, unfortunately, but you can get it directly from Jessica's website. Um, Now this is just it's a beautiful font. Like it's so well made. There's such a vibe to it that I think it has that kind of nostalgic feel to it anyway, right? And I think that's what really makes it work. Paired with this color palette, which is kind of muted, and obviously all the classic kind of shots from Anderson. It feels so fitting. Um, and when we think about things that are available through Adobe Fonts, right? Like there's a few ways that we might try and emulate that sort of vibe, right? We have script fonts as well, so you can. This one here is Nautica, which is it's kind of a similar one. Um, but again, you can browse through kind of the script fonts that are available in our library.
I think too, if you on Jessica's site, she talks a little bit about the tone of the movie and then the typeface and why it was made to look this way, and that's helpful
Mm,
when you're just thinking about picking a font. So maybe you're not doing something exactly like this or whatever, but you're like, oh, what? Why would I use this versus this? You can often find little notes and tidbits around the web of the designers who made the fonts or the production
totally.
designers who chose the fonts, and it's like, why did they choose that and why does it work? And it can get you just thinking what would work for this and lead you in a maybe a totally different direction or in a direction that just feels more appropriate to what you're doing. So
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do when I'm browsing for fonts. Especially on the fonts website where there's a bit more space, right? You can go into each of the families, and we'll have some information about why these particular fonts were designed. Um, a little blurb from the type designers, or you can go directly to those foundries, and often on their websites as well, they have even more design information about the history of this, some good uses for it, why you might want to pair it with other things. So that's a great tip then. Okay, I'm gonna skip. Let's go to the Grand Budapest Hotel, seeing as it's my favorite, and there's a bunch that we can talk about with this one. Um, so this one again, we see kind of a subtle shift. Like we pull back a bit on the script font, and we do introduce a few other trends that kind of become well, we see later on in the later movies as well. The first of all is, I think I have to zoom in again, is this introduction of a slab serif. So again, this is kind of geometric though. It's got this Futura-esque vibe to it, but it's a slab serif, right? So you see on the characters, we've got these chunky serifs on them. I believe this one that was used for the Grand Budapest Hotel is Archer from Hefler, um,
yep.
which we don't have as part of our library, but it's a beautiful slab serif. I think there's some particular details that we see in other slab serifs. This is not quite the same, but it gives that same sort of vibe, right? Like we have these chunky slabs that meet the the vibe that he's going for here. Um, Again, this is some kind of custom type for the main kind of hotel signage here, right? This is emulating a real sign, right? It's not a typeface. This is like real metal, I guess, that will be made into the signage, right? And you can see this is another trend that he uses a lot more in the more recent movies as well. Is this it's really kind of crossing the boundaries between type and lettering. Like there's these imperfections in it that makes it feel more human in many ways, right? Like the spacing on this is completely off, right? Like no way is this made by a machine.
Yeah.
um we'll often see as well like mixed weights of in the type as well. So like one of the letters is more bold for some reason, and it's really making it feel that more like tangible feel. And that's something that you can do in your own designs as well, right? Just playing with spacing, playing with different weights to make it feel a bit more like it's um, less perfect. Um, Now, kind of inspired by some of those, I found a couple of similar options in the fonts that we have available. But these were kind of hard to track down, right? Because even trying to get visual similarity on on type
Mm-hmm.
that's on a curve is a nightmare. So these were ones that I could kind of find. But another thing that I do like doing, and it's kind of a little secret feature that we have in the new Express beta, is finding similar fonts once you've already found one. So down here, we have this Edward Norton credit. It's in this slab serif. We have these really cool recommendations for the other fonts you could use, which are built in. But if we dive a little bit deeper, and you will see over here, we have this more like this button.
The squiggly wave.
So the squiggly wave, that toothpaste squiggly wave. And that will bring in some visually similar fonts based off the one that you already have. So we can see here, here's some other slab serif choices. Here's some other, geometric ones. This one's kind of funky. Obviously, it's getting less and less similar as we go down. But I love this tail of this. Look at this.
Mm.
That's beautiful. And this feels, again, it's kind of Futura-esque, a little bit more playful. But I think this is the sort of thing that I think
You can diverge from
more
that
and more.
original, you can find something similar and then
Right.
diverge in a way that holds the spirit of it, but now you're off in a totally different direction.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And this one's called Laka, I guess it will be pronounced. But you're right. Yeah, because so much of what he does is really building these worlds, right? And I think obviously here we have kind of a handful of kind of visuals here, but maybe in this one we see a bit more as well, right? So throughout the movies, there is just a ton of type everywhere, right? In these worlds, there's signage, there's newspapers, there's a ton of different things, and when you really dive in to see the fonts that are being used by the graphic design team, there's so many things that it goes beyond Futura, right? It's I think this one here is Din, which we have available. I'm not sure what these are, but it's really these kind of this has almost got that letterpress feel to it.
Yeah, these
right?
might even be handmade. Like they might actually be handmade,
Yeah.
but very similar to existing typefaces.
Right, and this is where things like this as well. I could see totally this being used somewhere in these movies, right? It's very reminiscent of how it could be used. One other call out I wanted to make about Grand Budapest Hotel is the Mendel's cake boxes. Now, this isn't the best shot of this, but these are like a huge part of the movie where this patisserie that makes these incredible cakes is featured, and their design is iconic, I think, as part of the movie. And when I was looking into this, we actually have this typeface that was made, and it's called Mendel's. It was made. It was completely inspired by the movie. So there's this serif version.
So the designer took the branding from Mendel, the branding of a fake place in the movie, and took that logo and turned it into an entire font.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's
They're pretty big families as well. Like you have all of these different styles. Like it's these extra bold ones are so fun. I love it. I think this is really kind of thinking about taking that Wes Anderson style, and this is very literal in interpreting it, but when we think about how you could use these in your own work, right? Like there's a ton of possibilities about how you take this inspiration and run with it. Let's dive into one more, and then we'll talk a bit about video. Let's talk about the newest one, simply because it's brand new. I think it was out last week, a couple of weeks ago.
It's out now, if you want to go see it.
It's out now. I went and saw it this weekend. It was very fun. And again, over time, I think there's this kind of an evolution, right? So I think here, when we look at this shot here again, there's so many of the same things, right? These are kind of almost geometric-y, but slightly different. Like there's a kind of very hand feel to a lot of these things, though, right? These are clearly sort of handmade signage, but it's it's an evolution of what's going on here, right? This is very Futura-y over here. But then in the titles, we have this new treatment, which is this drop shadow on this very, I don't even know how you describe this. How would you describe this, man? It's kind of industrial,
angular. It's kind of like might fit on like a sports jersey or a college jersey, but not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in
It
researching
reminds
this,
me of
I believe it
banks.
is.
It reminds me of a
Hmm,
bank. I don't know why.
yeah,
Financial things.
yeah. Has this importance to it,
Yeah.
maybe.
This this sturdiness, authority.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, well, so I did a bit of research. I believe this was actually a custom-made font for the movie. I think by the designer Erica Dawn, who was involved in the production. And what's interesting about this, I think, is this shadow usage is it's so striking, and I think again, a lot of the trends we've seen on the TikTok have started to use this styling. But there's no font that's exactly similar, so often they're applying this kind of coloring and the drop shadow to different fonts, and it kind of works, it kind of doesn't. So, I think if you want to go for this emulating this kind of style, I think this is a great way that you can use another feature that we have, which is our visual search. And now let's see if this actually works. So I'm going to quickly take a screenshot of this name up here, which is part of this poster. I'm going to jump over to Adobe Fonts, and we have this thing which you can drop any image of type onto our website, and we'll do our best to find all the text and give you some similar fonts. So now this is kind of maybe a bit of a lower resolution, so maybe it's not going to be exactly perfect, but we can see here, we're getting some examples of similar fonts that we have available. Um, None of these are doing exactly what I want. I think I would have to have a bit of a higher resolution image. Thus is trying to do this on the fly. Um, but that's a great way that you can, take these inspirations and see what similar fonts are out there. So I had done this quickly before, and the most similar one that I could find to this titling font is I think we have this in the chat already. It's called um, well, actually, there's a few of them. So this one is Apothec. There's also Industry, which is another similar one, and it's one of the bolder weights. Probably, but let's go super bold. So again, it's that sort of similar feel. This one's a little bit wider, but it's got that that angular S and all those very square and kind of
Hmm.
kind of angular details to it. Um, Now, one other quick thing to highlight with the new Express as well is one reason that you would use Express is it's kind of the name, right? We want this to be fast. We want it to be fast and easy to make these designs. So getting to this sort of styling, you could spend a lot of time getting these perfect drop shadows and nailing it all quickly, or in a couple of clicks you can make this in Express. So for this, I set the text, I went over here, I grabbed the color from the poster to get this kind of yellowy orange. Then we also have these new effects down here. So shadow is one. You can quickly apply, spoiler alert, a shadow. So you can change different properties here. It's super quick. You can change the angle, and within a few clicks, you have something that's already emulated that, um, which is a great segue into back to the TikTok trend. We want to make this a quick, easy video that we can put on TikTok. Now, Ben, I think I asked you a little bit about TikTok, and you said that you haven't been lured in yet. But I've been wondering. I feel like you should be like a TikTok influencer. I feel like you have the capability, the everything, the je ne sais quoi that would make you popular on TikTok. So
I take that as a
don't.
compliment.
Yeah, I think this is a new thing for you. So bearing that in mind, let's get you started with Express. Um, so I quickly set this up just before we got started. So I've dropped in a couple of videos and in this little timeline, I have some text here. This is the stuff. The start of these little things often in the trend is like don't act like you're in Wes Anderson doing this everyday thing. Um, So, one of the things that they do is, overlay the text on the video as well. So, this clip, we have a little bit of a run in on this one. So you can do things super quickly, like split that. So we can make that into a couple of clips. Then maybe we would want this text. Oh, well, you can see it's a beta, so sometimes we have to hit refresh. Maybe we want this text to be on top of the video. So I'm gonna copy that, just hitting Command C, and paste that over the over the video, sorry. Now, obviously, we're going to need to change the color of this. So let's make that visible. Let's drop it right in the center. Maybe we can put this afterwards. So now we have this like video clip. We have some text on top. Then the next part of the trend is, there's some other text that comes in that's like animated. So typically it's like, hey, we're on Adobe Fonts Live. What time is it now? 12:41.
Yeah, so we have about, I would say about 10, 12 minutes left.
10, 12 minutes. Okay, we're gonna go fast. This is the speed of Express though, so we can add in a few more details here, right? Ben and Jake. Oh gosh, the pressure of typing live is the hardest thing.
Oh, it'll get you every time.
Oh god, it's the hardest thing, I swear. Okay, let's quickly grab a color palette as well. We want this to feel Wes Anderson, right? So here's the color.adobe.com website. This is a great resource for finding color palettes. I just did a quick search for Wes Anderson as well, right? We want this to be on theme. So from here, right, you can grab any of these. I'm just gonna kind of do I like this one. I'm gonna do a quick screenshot of that, bring it over into Express, and I'm gonna use that as some inspiration. Oh no, I didn't do it right, did I? Use that as some inspiration for this little screen. Okay, here we go. So, all right, let's set the background. This light pink, the text. Maybe we'll grab that darker one. And I'm going super quick here, but this is kind of the benefit of using Express is everything is really nice and fast. And here, now let's dive into some of the animation features. So, Express has all of the kind of typical text capabilities that you might expect, right? We have the alignment, we have bullets and numbering, which is helpful as well if you want to do something a bit more complicated. We have letter spacing and line spacing. So, if we want to track things out a little bit, and this is something that often actually happens in the Wes Anderson styling, is things are tracked out a little bit, which is often looked down upon in typography, but it's something that he does well. It makes it feel a little bit more human. And again, we're just using Futura here, but I know actually, why don't we change this to that lacquer one? I was really liking that. So here I can just do a search within the font menu, and I can quickly grab that font.
Laka is designed by Novatype, and we have a stream with Joanna from Novatype in our back catalog. So go to behance.com/Adobe Fonts and check that out. It's Novatype is the foundry.
That is perfect. Okay, so let's look at some animation, right? So we have some text selected. We can quickly go up to animation. We want to animate the text in. We can just do a simple fade. Let's drop down the duration. I guess we want to do that for all of the pieces of text. I'm rapidly running out of time, so I'm going as fast as I can. And there we go. Okay, so now let's see if this plays. I'm not sure if the sound is going to do anything, but we will see.
No music. We're okay on.
Okay, that's great. Oh no, my animation didn't work.
I think it did. It just happened so fast because of how short it was.
Oh gosh, I didn't set any delay on it. Well, there you go. This is some great video that Ben took. While we're here as well, like looking at the details from, how you can make this feel a bit more Wes Anderson as well, right? So you can do these color adjustments. So even if you've taken this little video on your phone, you can, bump up the warmth of these shots to make it feel a bit more,
Vintagey, a bit
saturated.
more, yeah,
Yeah, like,
nostalgic.
in a couple of sliders, you've got this feel that's way more Wes Anderson-y. I guess I should have set the delay on those a bit. Oh yeah, there's the animation. Um, but yeah, there we have it. Like in a few seconds, a few clicks, you can keep making content for TikTok. Ben, I'm looking at you. I feel like this is going to be your thing. Maybe we need to get an Adobe Fonts TikTok going on.
That could be an important career move for me. This could be the next phase of my next 10 years. So
It could well be. It could well be. I think that's all the kids are doing it these days, I guess.
nice. Really quick, I want to just for Isle of Dogs, I just want to point out, in case people don't know, we have quite a few Japanese typefaces in Adobe Fonts as well. And did Isle of Dogs also use Futura somewhere in there?
Yes, of course. So yeah,
Okay.
you can see here, and this is another classic styling that he uses. So often for the credits for the names, you can see here we have the lowercase first name, uppercase surname, and you'll see that repeated kind of again and again as well throughout the movies.
Yeah, Royal
Yeah, so
Tenenbaums does
Futura
that.
here,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know, it looks kind of nice. It's not that commonly done. But yeah, of course, here we are set in Japan, and this real nice mix of the Latin and Japanese typography going on. It feels so balanced. I believe it was some custom type that was used in the movie for the Japanese fonts, but again, as Ben mentioned, we do have a ton of Japanese fonts available, and you can get them directly in Express. So through more fonts, we can come in and we can, if we scroll down a bit, we can search by language and we can access all the Japanese fonts, and go from there to find something that's kind of similar to what's used in the movie.
Nice.
I think there's also such great inspiration from this one, with again it's this like world building, right? It's all the signage that's used throughout. It's so, and yeah, you can see here, the letter spacing again, and it's still all the same themes, but it's like translated into the more Japanese vibe. It's
The
very
amount of,
cool.
I mean, obviously the amount of detail on something like a stop motion film, you get it just because everything is made by hand. And it's
Yeah,
still impressive, but also these kind of details are in the other films as well. Like down
right.
to the sign in the back of the person in the little thing in the corner and the books that are on the shelves.
Yeah, right.
Often they're
Even the
custom. Yeah, it's amazing.
even the
Yeah,
labels on these tags. I saw there was a blog post with an interview with Erica Dawn, the designer on this, and she was talking about how machines, when they print these dog tags, often have mechanical errors, so the spacing was all off based off how it might look in real life and stuff, and all those considerations about how to get all these details right. And it's again, it's that attention to detail, right? We see it in Grab Budapest Hotel as well, where I believe the designer was Annie Atkins, who is another friend of Adobe. I think we've had her speak at Adobe Max a few times about some of her work as well, and just the amount of time and detail that goes into all the thought process behind the graphic design is amazing. And just another shout out for Annie Atkins, on our website, the Fonts website. There is a font pack which was curated by Annie. So if you want some other fonts that are in this vintagey vibe, and a quick little interview with her, she's curated this list, and you can quickly activate all of those from there as well.
and you found this because you searched our site for Wes Anderson just in case, right? And of course, in
I
her.
did. I was kind of cheating. I was like, hey, I wonder if I can not do any research for this and just have all the answers in a second. And well, we're not quite there yet. We are trying to figure out ways to make it way easier to find these fonts. But for now, I have to do a bit of research behind the scenes to figure out all of the nuance that's gone in behind these details.
So cool. We've got about 5 more minutes. Do we want to dive back into a little more of the video, or do we want to just hang out here for a second?
I wonder if do we have any other questions for the chat? I mean, I think one other thing, like I guess the takeaway from this really is, like I think when we look at iconic designers, right? There's so many out there, and especially when we think about cinema, or it might be other media as well. How can we take that as inspiration, and make it our own? And I think looking at details, looking at even like the type behind the scenes, right? Maybe you're not that interested in the particular titling font, but you see things like this level of detail on this pin board in the French Dispatch. Like, there's so much thought that's gone into these, and it adds to the whole vibe. And I think even these S's, I would say these two look like they're upside down to me, but I think that's kind of the vibe of this like slightly off kilter nuance that
Fantastical world,
they
yeah,
have. Yeah.
where everything's color coded and perpendicular
Right.
and congruent. Yeah.
Right. But then thinking, how can I take these details, and how can I be inspired by this to want to make my own style, right? Or, you know, if you're working for a client, if you're working on a personal project, right? Like, is there things that you like from this style that you might be like, hey, I like this thing. I don't quite like that thing. What is it exactly that you would want to pull out? And even going through the exercise of, how would I describe some of these things? How would I describe the feelings that are emulated by this, right? I was asking you then, like, how would we describe this? Like, it's that exercise of thinking, how do I verbalize how this looks?
Yeah.
And then from there, those are great ways to search for fonts, or to search for other inspiration, or to be like, hey, I kind of like this, but maybe I don't want it to be quite as rigid, or I keep wanting to say angular with this, but it's not. Like, there is curves here, but I might take that as a starting point, and then be like, I really want something more curvy, less harsh with this S, for example. And then from there, right, you can do exercises like, okay, well, here's a similar one. Let's try and use the similar feature again, where I'll use this as a starting point, but already here, right, I see this one again, way more rounded S. It's similar sort of vibe. It's still got that upright, all kind of condensed serif. The R has got this maybe a bit more funky leg, or rounded leg, than that straight one. So, maybe you still like that straight leg, but you can just play around with this until you come across one that really, this one's actually really similar to the first one.
It's very similar. Is that
Yeah, which
industry?
one's this? I think this
Or is that
is, yeah,
Apotec?
Apotex. Yeah,
Yeah.
Apotec is, yeah. So, I mean, we have a whole world of fonts available through Adobe, and I think there's a lot of similar ones, but all those details, even talking about Futura and other geometric sans serifs, like, there's so many of the same style, but it's really about digging into those details and figuring out, especially when this is like the hero here, right? It's the big thing that you see. It's what your eye is drawn into, right? Those details matter, and it can evoke a way different feel. I mean, even in this one, right? It's it has these very sharp
Mm-hmm.
quotation marks,
Yeah.
whereas these are a bit softer. So this feels a bit more intimidating. Um, but yeah, it's all those nuances that really help make the style. So you can look at this and be like, these are the things that I really appreciate about it. These are the things that I wouldn't particularly want for this design, and use that as a starting point, to make your own work.
Fantastic. All right, everybody, we're pretty much here at the end of the stream. If you enjoyed that show, and want to see past shows from the Adobe Fonts show, follow us on Behance. You can do so right there. And we'll announce all shows before they come out. And then you can also, again, go through the old catalog. Usually it is very evergreen material. So often we aren't as timely as we are, as on trend as we are this week. We're usually
So
more
trendy.
evergreen, so the most trendy. So there's a bunch of great stuff in there. Type designers and other designers, and just things to do with type. So check that out. And then if you have any feature requests, font requests, any things that you want to see from the Adobe Fonts team, go to adobefonts.uservoice.com and let us know. There's plenty of people have put feature requests and other things there. You can upvote them, but also you can just add your own. And really quick, just want to say, Jake, thank you for joining us this week and putting together that
Thank you for having
fantastic
me.
presentation and all the details, and finding all of the fonts in Adobe Fonts that people can use. It was Very cool.
It was very fun looking into it. Thank you.
Yes, we'll have you back again very soon, and maybe with Ari as well. We can do a trifecta. All
Let's
right,
do it.
all right, everybody. See you. See you next time.